To make a standard hula hoop, we're gonna need some PEX tubing, a ratcheting PVC pipe cutter, a blow dryer, and the connectors, which are also called couplings. They look like this. Now size matters because tubing comes in all different sizes. For our purposes, we're gonna be using 3/4 of an inch, 125 PSI PEX tubing. So make sure when you get your connectors or couplings that you get 3/4 of an inch, because they also come in 1/2 inch sizes, and you don't want one that's too small. Now these actually hold the hula hoop together through pressure. And the tubing, it's gonna be a tight fit. We actually cannot put the connector in without first melting the tubing a little bit with the blow dryer. So that's why you'll need a blow dryer. This ratcheting PVC pipe cutter is what's gonna cut your hula hoop, cut your tubing. The tubing comes coiled up in hundreds of feet. So I recommend when you're first starting out, buy 100 feet. You might be able to find it in 25 feet. For 100 feet of tubing, you'll be able to make at least 10 hula hoops. To use a ratcheting PVC pipe cutter, it comes locked like this. You're gonna open it up and be really careful with this. It's very dangerous. Make sure that you keep it away from all your kids and all drunk people. So it opens up just like this, and it looks like a parrot head. Now when you first buy tubing, it's gonna be all coiled up, so I recommend that you lay it down flat on the ground, unwrap it, and leave it there for a day or two, and it'll loosen up just like this. Now tubing comes in all colors. I'm using clear tubing. You can get it in black or blue or red, but it's still PEX tubing. Make sure that when you're first starting out, you get PEX tubing. So you're gonna wanna cut the very end, and to cut it, you're just gonna place the ratcheting PVC pipe cutter there, grab the tubing firmly. You can do this on the ground as well, laying it down. I just wanna hold it up so that you can see what I'm doing. Make sure no fingers are there, and squeeze. And each time, the blade gets closer and closer. And when you get here, you just give it a twist, and you'll get a nice, clean cut, like that. So to connect the tubing together, we're gonna actually soften it up with the blow dryer and put the connector inside there. See how it really can't fit that well in? We're gonna change that. So I'm gonna show you how to measure a hula hoop for yourself as well. Okay, so cut off a sizable chunk of tubing. So I cut off something that's pretty big. If you're a beginner hula hooper, you wanna have something that's at least to your belly button. So this is gonna be up to my boobs, and I don't want it that big. So what I'm gonna do is cut it little by little until it's approximately up to my waist. So opening the ratcheting PVC pipe cutter, grasping it really firmly, making sure there's no fingers in it, and I'm gonna cut it. I'm cutting off about 1 foot, but it's best to cut your tubing little by little, and you can always cut more. So grab both sides, perfect. So next we're gonna take your blow dryer and blow dry each end of the tubing to put the connector inside. Come on over and let's do that. Okay, so you take your tubing and your hair dryer, turn it on full blast for about 30 seconds to a minute. Be careful not to touch the end of the tubing because it's going to be really hot, but you're going to stick this in here and push it until it gets to the middle. You'll know it's in the middle because there's a line there. So that's the first half of our standard hula hoop. Okay, so we're going to have to do the same thing on the other side. So turn on your blow dryer full blast. And now we push the tubing onto the connector. So the blow dryer helps melt the tubing a little bit because without it, the connector won't fit. So now it's a nice tight fit, and you have a standard size, standard hula hoop. So what I recommend before we decorate it is that you lay it down flat on the ground for 20 to 30 minutes so that it can cool off and that you don't warp the tubing. So next we're gonna make collapsible hula hoops. To make a collapsible hula hoop, you're gonna need the same tools that we use to make the standard hula hoop with two additional things. You're gonna need an extra connector and two 3/4 size rubber O-rings. So we're still gonna use our friend the ratcheting PVC pipe cutter to cut the tubing, still gonna use the hair dryer, still gonna use that same standard size tubing. So this is a 3/4 size rubber O-ring. They come in packs of 100, they're really cheap. This is what allows the hoop to flex into a figure 8 shape. And this is our standard 3/4 inch connector. What you're gonna do to allow the hoop to flex is thread this onto the middle of that. Put it on the end, almost like you're putting on a condom, and make sure that you put it all the way to the middle. There you have it. You're gonna need two, one for each side of the hoop. So I've done the same thing with the other connector. Two connectors and two O-rings for one collapsible hoop. So notice that the tubing is still in one big piece of tubing. But to make a collapsible hula hoop, we're gonna need two pieces of tubing since there's two connection points. But to make sure that they're perfectly the same size, we're gonna connect these two pieces first. So take your little connector, heat up the ends of your tubing. So turn your blow dryer on full blast, 30 seconds to a minute on the first side. Remember to make sure not to touch the tubing with your bare hand over there because it's going to be really hot. So as you can see, I put it in and I'm going to push it to that little red O-ring. So that side's perfect. Make sure that it's even on both sides. And now we're going to flip it and do the same thing to the other side. Turn that blow dryer on full blast. So just like with a standard hula hoop, you're gonna grab the tubing on both sides and push it in. This will really help tone your arms making hula hoops. So that's the first side. You're gonna keep it like that and just flip it over. And we're gonna cut right on top of where the other one is. If you want to, you can measure, but I've made collapsible hula hoops so many times that I really have it down to a science. I really don't need to measure. You can eyeball it if you like. So we're gonna take our friend, the ratcheting PVC pipe cutter, line it up, and cut, open the tubing. We're doing this because there's two connection points on a collapsible hula hoop. So now take your second O-ring, hold it in your hand, hold the tubing, and blow dry this side. 30 seconds to a minute. If you're using black tubing, it might take a little longer than a minute. So just like on the other side, you're gonna push this in up to the red connector point. Make sure that it's even on both sides. Grab the last side and blow dry it again. So just like before, take your tubing and push it together. And there you have it, a collapsible hula hoop. Now this last step is really, really important for a collapsible hula hoop to not get warped. You want to lay it flat on the ground, leave it alone for at least 2 hours before you try to collapse it, because the tubing gets really hot from the blow dryer and you could warp the tubing or break your hoop. You want to make sure that that tubing is nice and hard before you touch it. Now that the hoop is all cooled off, we can tape it. There's a few different kinds of tapes that you can use. Gaffer tape, or the kind of tape that hockey players use, allows the hoop to grip onto your clothing or your body as you use it. It comes in all different colors. It's pretty easy to use. It's flexible, so it's great for a standard hoop as well as a collapsible hoop. In our case today, I'm going to be using this neon yellow gaffer tape. Another great kind of tape to use is vinyl or electrical tape. Comes in all different colors. It's super flexible. It's so easy to use. It's affordable. It doesn't allow the same kind of gripping power that the gaffer tape does, but it does offer some grip, and that's great. This can also be used on a collapsible hoop as well as a standard hoop. Now the next kind of tape that I'm going to be talking about is duct tape. Duct tape has a lot of decorative tape out. I know you're probably going to be wanting to go out and grab as much as you can because the designs are so pretty. But wait until you get used to taping with gaffer tape and vinyl tape too first, because it's very hard to work with. It gets wrinkly, and you do not want to put this or other decorative non-stretchy tape on your collapsible hoop because it'll get shredded and ruined, because you need to use tape that's going to flex with the hoop when you collapse it. So for our purposes today, we're going to be using these two tapes. You're also going to need a nice sharp pair of scissors. Let's get started. So the method that I find easiest and best for holding a hoop while you're taping it is to either sit or stand with your hoop squeezed between your knees. It's also a pretty good thigh workout. You're going to start next to the connection point. We do not tape on top of the connection point, at least for a collapsible hoop, because we need it to stay free to allow the hoop to flex. So I'm going to grab my vinyl tape and I'm going to put it on the hoop at an angle like that. Make sure that there's no wrinkles in it, and I'm just going to swirl it around, pass it back and forth, making sure to leave a similar amount of space between each tape. And I'm going to go like this around the whole hoop, making sure along the way that there's no wrinkles and that the tape doesn't get twisted. So once you're used to it, you can go pretty fast. But for our purposes, I'm going to show you as slow as possible. So it does take practice to get it as perfect as possible, just like with anything. So see how there's an air bubble there? I'm going to just press that out with my finger. That's the beauty of vinyl tape. It's very forgiving, very flexible. If you make a mistake, you can unwrap it, cut it out. See how that's folded in on each other? Just cut it off. Start fresh and go right on top of where I just made a mistake. Making sure that it's very smooth. And I'm going to do this around the entire hula hoop. Once you reach the other side, you want to make sure that you don't tape over this connection point either. So get a new piece of tape and start fresh next to this one. I've cut the tape on an angle so that it's flush with the end of the tubing. So what I like to do when I get to the very end is add a contrasting color around the connection points. That way if you're selling the hoop, the customer or person buying the hoop knows, okay, these are the connection points. This is where I'm going to have to push down to collapse my hoop. Also, it tends to look really cool to have a few different colors on your hoop. I'm using the yellow gaffer tape, and instead of going diagonal, I'm going to go parallel to that little rubber O-ring, making sure not to go in the crack of the connection point there, but just right up next to it. So I've got one layer there. I like to do 2 layers, that way it's nice and sturdy. Cut it off there. Make sure that it's lined up right. If it's not, it looks, we want it to be homemade, not look homemade. Okay, so next we're gonna do that same thing on this side. Just marking off where that little O-ring is. And that's one. We're gonna do that one more time. It's your preference if you want to do it once or twice, but I find doing it twice makes for a sturdier hoop. So now just swing your hoop around. We're going to do that on the other side, right here on this connection point. Also, this serves another purpose. If you don't line up your vinyl tape with the connection point, this hides it and makes it look more professional and a little better. So we're doing that same thing, making sure that it's lined up, not covering the red O-ring at all. On a side note, the O-rings come in different colors, so don't freak out if you can't find red ones. As long as it's 3/4 of an inch, it'll be the right one for a 3/4 of an inch thick hula hoop. So we're gonna do the last one. If you make a mistake, it's okay to undo it and make sure that it's done right, the right way. And there you have it. Professional tape job for your collapsible hula hoop. So now that your hoop's all done, we're ready to collapse it. Stand with your feet around each side of the hoop, so it's between your feet. Your hands are grasping it firmly on each side. Now this is very important for you not to break the hoop. If you press straight down, you're gonna break it. You need to hold it firmly, twist as you push down and away into a figure 8 shape. Line up the connection points like so, and fold it in half again. So now, you're ready to travel with it. You can tie a strap around it and you're good to go. Now to unfold it, you're just gonna untie it if you tied it. Let it go. See how it tries to unfold on its own? You're gonna open it up, pull the connection points away from each other. See how it's kind of wonky and out of shape? You're gonna need to twist. Hold it firmly and twist until it straightens out. Now it's really important that you don't store your collapsible hula hoop coiled down for too long, or it'll get warped forever. It's good if you're traveling on an airplane for 12 hours. I've taken my hoop with me to Hawaii and to the Bahamas and it was fine. But you don't want to leave it in your car for like 3 years coiled up because basically it's ruined. So when you're not using it for extended period of time, keep it in its big hoop position. Tuck it under a bed, lean it against the wall, put it on your hat rack, and you're good to go. Thanks for watching and happy hooping.